Hello, I'm Mary Bishop, and I'm here to talk about Project Drawdown Intervention number 66, recycling paper. Let me get into presentation mode. Okay, hopefully you are seeing my presentation. So let's start by looking at getting some context. Okay, so in doing this project, we are looking at future emissions of carbon and what would, how can what I'm looking at in Project Drawdown reduce those emissions? So between 2020 and 2050, we can surmise that we will be releasing at least 300 gigatons of carbon. And that's because in 2019, we released 10. So I multiplied that over 30 years. But this could be a low estimate because yearly emissions are predicted to rise. So recycled paper can feasibly reduce this number by 1 or 2 gigatons. So of the 300 that would be released in the next 30 years, recycling paper could reduce this by 1 to 2 gigatons over the next 30 years. The net cost of that reduction is 414 billion. 414 billion US dollars for every gigaton of CO2 that is saved. Here is a picture from our climate change additional reading books. I liked it because paper gets a shout out. So this is a greenhouse gas emissions flowchart from 2003. And as you can see, carbon dioxide makes up for 85% of greenhouse gas emissions. And within the industry, zoom in, you can see pulp, paper, and printing, 2.3%. So within industry, which is 12%, 2.3% of greenhouse gases are coming from paper, pulp, and printing. More context. Okay. I think another important thing to look at is the world's economy in general. So the world's economy is worth $80 trillion. And because I'm going to be talking about numbers worth in billions, I'm going to say that $80 trillion is the same thing as 800,000 billion. So we got 800,000 billion dollars in the world's economy. And the paper and pulp industry right now is valued at 520 billion. So if you do the math, that means that paper and pulp is worth 0.065% of world's economy. But this number is going to rise, as you can see from this chart I found. And that is because of packaging is going up. And also, so what's really popular right now in paper is packaging and hygiene products made out of paper. So the scheme. So the plan for incorporating the world with using recycling systems for paper is to replace virgin paper production with recycled paper production. And every year we produce 90 million metric tons of paper. So current global recycling rate is 55%. Best feasible recycling rate is 75%. And Western Europe is already there. So in my report, there was 2 scenarios. The first was that we get up to the point where 69% of total paper is recycled, which they call low adoption, which means 1.1 gigatons is saved. And a great case scenario, really highly adopting recycling methods, would be 74% of total paper is recycled, which would be 2 gigatons saving, which would cost twice as much. So how would the manufacturing change to incorporate recycling paper? Well, virgin paper production is used by harvesting, debarking, chipping, and mechanical/chemical pumping, whereas recycled paper requires sorting, shredding, hydropulping, and de-inking. And again, the cost of CO2 reductions is 414 billion per gigaton. This cost is upfront, and then operational costs after that are equivalent to the current schemes. How will this impact climate drivers? Recycled paper reduces methane that gets released from landfills because that paper no longer winds up in the landfill. It can be recycled like up to 7 times. And it also reduces the deforestation and the CO2 that is released from that. And the positive effects of that aren't even included in our estimate of 1 to 2 gigatons savings. So in conclusion, primary intervention would be building recycling plants. The downsides would be intervention may be unnecessary due to digital trends, and no economic upside means difficult to coordinate efforts across nations. So, countries might be hesitant to be the ones that incorporate recycling plants, because if they already have regular recycling plants, they'd be at a net loss. But I wanted to say that even though paper, the CO2 released by the paper industry is only 0.33% of global CO2 emissions total, incremental improvements add together to create big improvements. So thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful.